Christian comedy. That's what's coming up on The Art of Bombing, episode 185.
My friend Dan, he's got a podcast, 'cause all comics need a podcast, and nobody had a podcast called The Art of Bombing. So Dan went out and bought a tape deck. Who knows why he bought a tape deck? Podcasts don't get played on tape decks, but Dan is from the 80s. So hey there, all you funny jerks, come talk to Dan about your work. Tell him all about your worst times. It's The Art of Bombing.
Welcome to a brand new episode of The Art of Bombing. Dan Bublitz Jr. here with you on Tuesday, January 12th, 2021. I hope everybody's had a fantastic week. Despite all the chaos with American politics, we're not going to get into this because this is not a political podcast. No, this is a comedy podcast where we talk about finding success through failure because we talk about everybody's favorite subject, bombing. And this week I have a great guest. My guest is Mark Christopher Lawrence. You may have heard of Mark, or you may not have heard of Mark, but I guarantee you've probably seen him in something because his acting resume is a mile long. He's been acting and doing comedy since the 80s, so he's been around for a long time. And his list goes on and on. Just a few things that he's been in. He was in NBC's Chuck. He was on Fox's Glee. He was in the movie Christmas with the Kranks. He was in the movie Halloween 2. And those are just a few of his credits. Like I said, it goes on and on and on. But he's also a fantastic Christian comedian. So that's what we talked about today. We talked about comedy. We did talk a little bit about his acting resume, but more about comedy and more specifically about Christian comedy. And we had a great conversation. He had a lot of great insight that he shared. So that's what's coming up on the episode. But before we get to that, we got to take care of a little bit of routine business. If you haven't done so already, I suggest listening to last week's episode with Zack Lyman. Zack, in addition to being a great comedian, is also a marketing guru. He specializes, I think, mostly with helping coffee brands, but I think he's just a marketing consultant, and you can probably hire him if you need some marketing advice. But the reason I bring that up is because he just released an eBook that's free on his website. Yeah, a free eBook called How to Successfully Make Money from Social Media Ads. So it's a marketing book on social media ads because that is very important. A lot of people spend a lot of money on Facebook ads, Instagram ads, YouTube ads, and do you really get a good return on investment? Not always, but his book's going to have a lot of tips on how you can get a good return on your investment. So I suggest checking that out. It's available at marketingbeaver.com/ebook. It's a free download. And while you're on his website, check out some of the stuff that he does. Maybe he can help you and give you some marketing advice on some of your other social media platforms. So go check that out. Another thing we've been doing, I don't know if you're not, you should be checking out our YouTube channel, the Art of Bombing Podcast YouTube channel, because we've been releasing clips with just specifically the bombing stories from some of the episodes, some of the fun bombing stories that other comedians have shared. I just released one yesterday with Wendy Mayberry. That's going to be screening as part of the Monday Night Comedy Show. Check that out. The Monday Night Comedy Show is the longest-running comedy show in Minneapolis. And during the pandemic, they've been doing it on streaming live via their Facebook page, the Monday Night Comedy Show. Go check that out. And you can see the clip of Art of Bombing on their next show. So go check that out. And go check it out anyway. Support live comedy, even if it's virtual. Even if it doesn't have anything to do with this podcast, go support a show because you're supporting comedians, and it's great. Last thing, everything else for the Art of Bombing, you know what to do. Go to the artofbombingpod.com. You can join the Facebook group. We have a Patreon. If you want to donate financially just one time, there's a donate button. You can buy merch. Everything you need is at the artofbombingpod.com. Now, before we get into this episode with Mark, I do want to give a disclaimer and let everybody know I did get some new equipment. I am still learning how to use some of my new equipment and get it to where it sounds good. This particular episode, still working on the learning curve. There's a little bit of background noise. You're going to hear it throughout the episode, and I apologize. I did my best at trying to get it cleaned up. but I couldn't get it out of there completely. So I just wanted to give everybody a heads up. There was a little bit of background noise in this episode, but I'm working on making it better. So now I think I got my equipment figured out, and hopefully that won't happen in the future. But in the meantime, I'm sorry. And all right, let's do this. Let's get into this conversation with Mark. Here it is. Enjoy.
And now it's time for the stand-up soundbite.
My comedy style is storytelling. I'm going to tell you some stories while I'm up here tonight, and all the stories I tell you tonight are true. Now, some of them I've embellished a little bit to make them a little funnier, but they're all true. For example, back in September, I was doing a show in La Jolla, charity event. There are 4 of the comics on the show. 13 minutes into my set, I'm closing the show out. 13 minutes in, the host comes up and says, I'm sorry, Mark, and he takes the mic. And then he says, is there a doctor in the house? What had happened was, some guy sitting about 6 rows back was laughing so hard, he keeled over and died. I'm trying not to be proud that I killed a dude with a joke. But there's a whole lot of ego that comes with killing a dude with a joke. Now, luckily for him, there were 4 doctors in the house that night. They went to work on the guy. They were able to resuscitate him. He woke up giggling. And I started to think about it on my way home. I was like, well what would have happened if the police would have shown up? I'm the only brother in the room. Have the police come in and say, who killed him? Every aisle. So now I got to share that cell with Bubba. And Bubba's giving me that look. What you in for? Sweetness. I killed a dude, Bubba. With a joke. Knock, knock, Bubba.
Coaching, and I did a couple of movies, and right here at the end of 2020 I did a recurring role on a show in Atlanta, but that's about it.
Oh, okay. I don't know. It always seems like you're promoting something or you got something going on. So
yeah,
from what I see online, but
just trying to stay visible,
Oh, absolutely. That's an important thing to do, especially in a time like this when, things have pretty much shut down everywhere. It's definitely good to try to stay relevant.
Yeah.
That's for sure. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, that's good. That's good. How did the Atlanta filming go?
It was good. It was a brutal schedule because of the way they shoot. Mm-hmm. But it was a complete closed bubble, so I felt safe and didn't have to worry about COVID stuff, other than testing every 4 days.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've heard, listening to other podcasts and stuff, people talking about doing acting gigs and stuff about, a lot of testing, very safe, everything's, trying to be as safe as they possibly can. So that's good. It's good that production is kind of starting back up a little bit too, because that's wow, right? Oh man, I mean, I don't even do a lot of acting or anything like that, but from a consumer point of view, I'm like, God, they're got to be running out of stuff. I know they're releasing stuff here and there, but throughout the pandemic. But if they don't start filming, they're going to end up running out of stuff to put out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I had right at the beginning of the pandemic, of the shutdown, I lost a bunch of not only comedy gigs, but TV pilot, a couple of films. One of the films came back, I ended up doing in Oklahoma. And, everything else is just down, literally first 3 weeks of March, I was getting phone calls and text messages and emails every day for gigs canceling all the way through November.
Mm-hmm.
So it was financially, it was a huge hit.
Yeah, I bet. I mean, I had quite a few things booked myself, not nearly as probably much as you had, and it was, felt significant. I did see you got to go to good old Sioux Falls, South Dakota before everything shut down.
Yep. That was a good time. I actually enjoyed myself in Sioux Falls. It was a great show, and a good friend of mine who lives in Sturgis came down to see me, he and his wife, and so that was good. Sioux Falls was a good time, and then I came back and had one audition, and then everything shut down.
Oh, no, so that was your last show then?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Wow, I guess I didn't realize that. Wow. No, yeah, Sioux Falls is great. And the people that run the club and everything, they're great people. Good friends of mine, too. I was excited. Okay. I was excited when they booked you, actually. In fact, I can't remember. I think I was booked that weekend, but otherwise I was going to come see the show. Yeah. Because I live in St. Paul now, so.
Oh, okay.
So I'm not living in South Dakota anymore, but I had something else going on. Otherwise I was going to try to make it. But I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, it was fun. I met some people. One morning I went to breakfast and I met some people from FEMA that came to the show.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and so, they saw I was there, and, I guess they recognized me from something and wanted to know why I was in town, and then they came to see the show, about 15 of them.
Oh, that's awesome. No, that's great. Yeah. They're actually, they actually moved the club completely to that hotel room now. So
nice.
They, the other location that they were doing some of the smaller shows, they turned that into like an arcade, like a pinball machine thing, and they do the comedy all at the hotel now. So, which is good because that gives them more of a chance for walk-up, sales and things like that.
Yeah, I like the hotel venue other than, there was no real green room.
Mm-hmm.
They put me like in the storage closet.
Oh.
And, because, I like I like a few minutes of nothing before I go on so I can collect myself.
Yep. No, that makes sense. Absolutely. Yeah. And it seems your dry bar seems like it was doing pretty good too. That's another cool thing that.
Yeah, dry bar, thank God for dry bar. I mean, that helped keep some lights on.
Yeah. Yep, that definitely helps. And then I saw you were doing something else because you do a lot of stuff, a lot of Christian comedy stuff too, right? Like you were working with
I do a lot of shows in churches.
Yeah, but didn't you do a TV show for like a Christian?
Well, I did a show for PureFlix.
Okay, I was trying to think of it. That's what it is.
Malibu Dan. I did the first 2 seasons. I did, I think 7 episodes in the first 2 seasons. And then my first thing I did for them was called The Content. I did 1 episode of that with Heather Locklear.
Oh, okay.
And then they gave me a little budget to produce a talk show, and so I did that for them. And it's really a good place for good safe place for Christian content.
Mm-hmm. No, that's always good. I mean, it's good to have all these different outlets. I thought you did something with stand-up with them too, but maybe I'm mistaken.
Well, it was the talk show. It was.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it was called Pure Comedy, and so basically, I interviewed some comics, and then we did their set at the studio. If I had it to do over again, I would work it out so that I could do the sets at a club or at a church, so that because some of the comics it threw them not to have an audience.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I suppose. Yeah. That is always weird. But now, the comics that did that without an audience, if they're doing any of these virtual gigs, they got a little experience ahead of the game.
Yeah. It's like I did the Chucky Perez show a few times with no audience. And for me, it's not a big deal. It's just, you just know you got to pause after you tell your joke so they can slide some laughter in.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the first time I did the 700 Club, it was the same way. They had an audience, but they didn't tell them they could laugh, so they sat there and didn't laugh.
Oh, no. I feel like that's almost worse than no audience.
It's like you see some of them like, with their hands over their mouth, wanting to laugh and couldn't. So it is what it is, I guess.
Yeah, you can. That's funny. That's hilarious. Yeah, this has been weird now. Have you done any virtual comedy at all? Have you? I know.
I don't like it.
A little bit. Yeah, it's different. That's for sure.
I did one show with Jason Earls, who's a Christian comic, and his format was more of a conversation, and he kind of set you up, and it was really that was fun to do. The ones where you go on and just do a set, it wasn't fun. It's like a long set is not a good thing. So
yeah, I haven't watched anybody do like super long sets on virtual shows. I've seen little open mics and like showcases where they're doing 5-10 minutes, which is plenty of time in that format.
Yeah, Squeaky Clean Comedy, they do like 12-minute sets, and I did a 12-minute set on there, and that was okay. I think anything longer than that is just too much.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I think a lot of it, too, depends on the platform, because there's different...
And your type of act.
Yeah.
It's like, my act is like my energy, I feed off the audience, and I include them, and it's hard to do that when you're online.
Yep. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I've had... I don't know. It's been interesting, but like I said, the different platforms too. Like when they do shows where there's essentially no audience and they stream it. Like I've seen people do shows with this platform, StreamYard, and you can't really have an audience in here, so it's kind of awkward. You're just basically throwing your jokes out to the void, and you have no idea if anybody's watching or laughing or any of that. And it kind of the same thing what you're talking about with performing in front of no audience. You just gotta leave room for hopefully where they'll insert laughter, and it'll be people at their computers or whatever. But
exactly, yeah. I think one of the shows that I did with the audience, one of the talk shows, they put the laughter in, but I don't know if they were in a hurry or what. But the laughter was not in the right spots. It's like, why didn't you you need to nudge it over some.
Timing's off just a little bit.
Yeah.
That's funny. That's great. Yeah, I think I did some Zoom shows that have been pretty fun, but like you said, short sets. I don't even think I could sit and watch somebody do 45 minutes to an hour on Zoom. I don't know if I have the attention. I don't know that I have the attention span.
Hilarious. Yeah, I did a show with her name is Kiki. She does a show called Crazy Woke Asians, and it was but it was karaoke and comedy.
Now that sounds fun.
Yeah, so that was actually fun because nobody was doing more than like 5 or 7 minutes of comedy, and then people are singing in between. So it was pretty cool.
Oh, that does sound pretty fun. I can always throw down on some karaoke, even though I'm not a good singer.
Yeah, I sang a couple of songs. I didn't do any stand-up.
Oh, that's great. I guess I did some virtual shows because I did a dry bar special myself, and it filmed in October, which was an odd time to have it. So it was supposed to film in April, and then everything got shut down.
Yeah.
So when everything's kind of started opening up again for a little bit. But it was still at a weird time because it was hard to get stage time at that, but I had to get ready. So I did some virtual shows to help get ready for that. And I was doing like 25-minute sets. And yeah, even that seemed kind of long for the format, but
yeah,
it was still good to get it out there, just for practice.
How the dry bar taping go? Did they fill the audience?
They filled it with a reduced capacity. So It was sold out with what their capacity was, which I believe was 50 people per show, because they had to spread out the tables and stuff.
Yeah.
So it felt more like performing in a comedy club with a big stage versus theater, because I suppose before they could get a lot of people in there.
It was theater seating.
Yeah, yep. So this was more like a comedy club seating where they had tables and, things like that. And they were all, kind of spaced out within the main floor. So it just felt like performing on a big stage. But it went great. I felt like they went pretty good. I mean, I had my late show was not, I didn't feel as strong about it. It's kind of weird because it was also like, they just started really enforcing masks in the state that particular day. So like on the first show, there wasn't, they tried to enforce masks like in the middle of the show, the host did, but I think everybody thought he was joking. So like, so they were like, cause it was like in the middle of the show. So like they weren't going to be putting on their masks. But then on the second show, they made sure they made that announcement up top because of the, state guidelines and things like that. So people, they were more enforcing wearing masks at the table if they weren't drinking or eating or whatever. So it was just so it was kind of a weird energy on the second show, and I think that's a lot of it. I mean, it is what it is, but overall, I thought it was a great experience. The people at Dry Bar are amazing.
They're really nice.
Yeah, some of the nicest people I've ever worked with. So it's always, because it's good. Like you do as a comedian, we do so many gigs where we get treated like crap, like even though there wouldn't be a show without the comedian, they're treated like they're the lowest part of the show.
Which is really interesting to me.
Yeah, so it's nice when you get to do a show like that where they treat you like you're a celebrity. Even in my case, nobody knows who I am really. You know what I mean? But they've treated me just like they would treat anybody else that was coming to their stage, which I thought was great. Really good.
Yeah, they were good people.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I've done shows where I remember after the show telling the booker to lose my number. There were a couple of those. I was like, you know what? Lose my number.
Yeah, just don't call again.
These people don't know how to treat people, and it was good shows. I mean, the shows were great. The audiences were great, but it's just the way they treated me. It was just like, you know what? You don't pay me enough for this.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I mean, and a lot of times too, it's a matter of just being treated like a human. You know what I mean? Like just some human decency. It's not even about celebrity status or any of that. It's just like be nice.
Exactly. Well, I mean, that's one thing I love about doing comedy at churches is that they always take care of you.
Mm-hmm.
I've never done comedy at a church and they didn't take care of me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's one thing I haven't done. I've done some church shows, but like not at churches. Like it was like a church fundraiser at the Comedy Palace.
Gotcha.
Things like that, but not like at a church. But I know quite a few comedians who do that, and the shows seem like they're always really good. And I imagine,
I like it. I did this tour up in Canada in February, and I think our smallest audience was about 560. Most of the time we were up around 1,800 or so. And,
wow!
And that was amazing. It was just just the energy in the rooms, and it's not like when you're at a club, people are drunk and had a hard day at work, a make me laugh kind of situation. It's like you get there and they're ready to laugh.
Mm-hmm.
and just a lot of fun. I love doing comedy at churches. It's so much easier to, from a performance standpoint. You just go out and have fun, and they're very appreciative.
Yep. Yeah, that's always really nice when the crowd is ready to laugh, and that's what they want. I know there's Brandon. He's been trying to do more churches and stuff too. I seen he's been trying to get out there a little more. I don't know. Sometimes too, though, because you have to read super. Like, there's a difference of clean too.
Clean and church clean. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, there's PG-13 and then there's squeaky clean.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm not there yet.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just got to look at your act and see what can you salvage. What can you take the my thing is no body parts, no language, and you'll be fine.
Mm-hmm. No, seems like a good set of standards for that.
Yeah,
I know.
I had one gig where they asked me at the second show not to do my bit about getting spanked as a kid, which was really odd to me because people spank their kids.
At least they did when you were growing up, right?
It's not like exactly. It's not like I'm advocating spanking your kids. I'm just telling you what happened to me.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point because that's important when it comes to telling jokes, especially being clean or squeaky clean. The intent of the joke is really what's important too.
Yeah, exactly. I and I actually said to the guy, I said, well, the Bible says don't spare the rod.
Yeah.
I said, but if you don't want me to do that joke, I won't do that joke. You're writing the check, you got it.
Yeah. It always comes down to that. You're writing the check, so I guess.
Yeah.
You want to get the check and want to be invited back. Yeah, got to do kind of what they say.
Exactly. Which reminds me, I got an email last week about a church gig coming up. I'm going to follow up and see if that's going to happen or not.
Oh, well, hopefully it does. I hope it does. Well, Now that we caught up a little bit and talked about some fun stuff with comedy, I would love to hear one of your stories about bombing, or not necessarily bombing, but having a bad show.
Well, it's funny. It's like I was thinking about that. I have never had a show where I completely bombed.
Mm-hmm.
Ever. Even when I first started doing comedy, I've never completely bombed. Now, there was, that being said, there was, early in my career, there was this competition in Long Beach, and D.L. Hewley was hosting the show, and all the guys that sort of grew up when I was growing up in comedy were there. Ricky Harris, Lester Berry, I think Bernie Mac was on the show.
Oh, wow.
Early in people's careers. And this was I want to say late 80s, mid 80s. Yeah, late 80s, because I think I was fresh out of college. And so we go do this show. We're doing this competition. It gets to the semifinals. I'm third on a show of 10. And have a great set. I know I'm making it through the finals. And at the end of the show, the venue announces if you come to happy hour, you can get into the show for free, the final show for free. The show, happy hour, starts at 4:30. The show started at 9. Oh,
my God.
So we get there, and people are obliterated, just drunken monkeys. Just, they've been drinking for 5 hours. And so the show starts. I'm 8th on the show, and I think Ricky Harris was probably the front runner. I was thinking that Ricky Harris had the best shot of winning this thing, and he was really funny. He was 3rd on the show, and 2 minutes into his act, he goes to his best bit and nothing. I mean, just a big goose egg.
Oh, man.
It was just a lead balloon. And there was one lady in the audience who would listen to the comics for a few minutes, or for a bit, and then the joke, they tell the joke, no laughter, people are just staring at you, and then she would crack up. So she was laughing at you.
Oh my God!
and it was this high pitched squeal of a laugh. So I go in, and eighth, and my friend Lester was on the show. Lester, about 3 minutes into his act, goes to his best bit and nothing, and I was like, I'm in trouble. And so I get up, I start doing my stuff, and I do probably 25 minutes of stuff in 7 minutes. I'm just flying through the joke. Most comics were just getting off early. They do the thing and get off. And this lady is howling at me the whole time. She's laughing at me the whole time. But I'm just keeping the jokes coming. It's like I'm making it rain with jokes. And I get off and I go to the back of the room where all the comics were. And they're like, man, you were like a pro up there. You just kept them jokes coming. and I did my whole 7 minutes, but that was my most painful set ever.
Oh man, yeah, it's amazing how with comedy, if you're having a good set, time will go so fast, and you know you can do 45 minutes to an hour, and it feels like you were only up there for 10, 15 minutes. But when it's not going so well, it's like an eternity, and you can just rush through all your material.
Yeah, it's funny. Bill Cosby. I was working on Ghost Dad, and I was looking at my very first tape. It was a 7-minute tape from the Long Beach Comedy Club, and I'm in my dressing room with the door open, and Bill Cosby and Sidney Poitier walk by, and he sees me on stage, and he steps up onto the steps, and he looks in, he goes, "How long is it?" I said, 7 minutes. He says, "Rewind it." He watched my whole 7 minutes. And he said, "It's as though you're afraid of the silence." He says, "You're telling so many jokes, you're not giving them a chance to laugh." He said, "Don't move, don't say another word after the joke lands until the laughter subsides." And I took that philosophy and applied it immediately, and I went from being an opener to a feature overnight.
Oh, wow.
Because all of a sudden I had all this material, because I wasn't moving or I wasn't stepping on laughs. And literally overnight, I went from opening to feature.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, that Chris Clobber, a mutual friend of ours, he gave me kind of that same advice, actually. Because I think you were, when I auditioned for Boo Ha Ha, which is now Comedy Heights, like several years ago, I think you were at my audition, actually.
Oh, wow.
I've memory serves me right. I think you were one of the comics.
Was Dustin there with you? Was Dustin there that night?
No, I think I was before him. I could be wrong, but I feel like you were there. But maybe I'm wrong. I know Al Gaffney was there.
I said it on a couple of their auditions.
Yeah, but that was the same thing, Chris. That was something that he noticed about me, because when I started out as very fast talking, and I could do 20 minutes in like 5 minutes.
Yeah, I used to like my fast pace. It's like I like the energy of my fast paced act, and sometimes I find myself in the middle of my act finding places to speed it up. Just pop, 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 and even though I'm telling stories, I don't really do stand up, sit up, set up, punch kind of jokes. But something about that energy, about the ability to whip the audience into a frenzy that I like. I'll get on something and notice that they're laughing at something and just keep that piece going before I move on.
Yeah, and that's a really good talent, because then you can really keep that, like you said, it's not a matter of waiting for the laugh. You're keeping the laughs going. Yeah. I've seen a couple of comics that are really good at that too.
there are a lot of guys that you can pick stuff up from just by watching what they do. You know, there's a comic that I like who we were both doing a show in Reno. I was at I think the Nugget, and he was at the Pioneer Underground at Reno Tahoe Comedy Club, and then I was going to do Reno Tahoe on the weekend, and so I went and I watched him. I did a few minutes on a guest spot on his show, and then I watched his set. I had never seen his whole set before, and I noticed that there was moments where he would start talking really soft, and then I noticed that the audience would kind of lean in to hear him, and I was like, "Ooh, I'm gonna have to use that." And sure enough, I started doing that a little bit here and there. It's like it just pulls focus. Mm-hmm. And it was such a great thing. And I said to him, I said, "Hey, you mind if I use that?" I said, because it's brilliant. He was like, "Hey, do what you do, man." I was like, all right.
Yeah, it's not really. I mean, taking using techniques and things like that. That's it. That's you got to. I mean, having different. You can't it's not like a joke where you can't you can steal a joke, but you're not like stealing somebody's technique in delivery. I mean, we all have different styles, but it's all a combination of something that's been done before.
Right. Yeah, I was just being politically correct, I think, in the moment.
Yeah, which is well, it's good on you. I totally get where you're coming from, but I just think that's when because sometimes you see that with comedy where somebody will have a similar style to somebody else, and they're like, "Oh, they're just being a hack." And it's like, well, their jokes are all original. To me, it seems more like they're just more inspired by this particular person versus trying to be that person.
Well, exactly. Well, over the years, it's like I find that there's certain inflections that I'll do like different comics, and I think it's subconscious that somebody that I admire, that their inflection, the way they deliver a joke, this I mean, my act for the most part is uniquely me, I think, and but there's certain moments where I feel like, oh, this kind of reminds me of Regan, or this reminds me of Robin Harris, or this reminds me of Bill Cosby, or this reminds me of somebody else. The way I say some things, and I think that's I think the ultimate form of flattery is that you admire them enough that there's something about them that sort of enhances your style. And I think I don't think anybody can look at my act and say that I've bitten anybody as anything, but because my act, I think all the stories I tell are true stories right out of my life. So so it's an act that's uniquely me.
I think that's important too with comedy. I mean, that's the best way to not be able for other people to steal your material too. Yeah. When you're telling stories, and doing material that's closely related to your life, you don't have to worry about somebody, Yeah. I mean, they might be able to steal your words, but they're not going to be able to tell that joke with the same passion that you will, and and to the same amount of detail.
Yeah, somebody sent me a bit that a comic was doing on stage that was very close to one of my closers. But I was like, no. I said, no, I don't think he bit it. I think it's just a different look at it. I said it's the same premise. I said, but I don't think he saw my act and said, "Oh, I'm taking that."
Yeah. Well, there's definitely parallel thinking. I mean, that just happens because it with comedy, there's nothing really original anymore. Every premise has been done. It's just a matter of finding a different perspective for it. So
I had a major headliner roll up on me early in my career one day. He didn't do the Thursday show. he came in Friday, Saturday shows. And the Thursday show, I guess one of either the guy that was hosting or the guy that was the opener, told this comic that I was doing his bit. And I had never even seen this guy. I had never even seen this comic before. I had heard his name because I think I saw it on the wall at the Comedy Store, but I didn't know who he was. It was Dom Herrera. Mm-hmm. And so he gets there Friday, and before the show, he comes up to me. He's hot. He's like, "Hey, I hear you doing one of my jokes." I said, "First of all, I don't know you. I've never seen you." And he says, "Well, just don't do it." I said, "Well, before you tell me not to do something in my act, how about you watch my act and then decide if you think I stole your joke?" And so I was, fresh out of football, so I was a strong kid at that point, and so I wasn't worried about anything that Dom could do to me. And so I did my bit, and he comes up after the show and apologizes. He says, "I'm sorry." He says, somebody said that you were doing my bit. He goes, it's not even close to my bit. He says, in fact, I think it's better than my bit. And left me alone. And it was like, and then I wanted to know who, but he wouldn't tell me because maybe he could sense that I had a little Compton still left in me.
He's like, "Yeah, I better not. I don't want to be responsible for another comic getting their face beat in."
Yeah. Well, what I did was the next show, after his apology, the next show, which was I think 10 o'clock, right before I did the joke, I said, "You're gonna hear other cat bits tonight." I said, and this is my take on the cat bit. I said, but always mind your own business.
Oh, that's great.
and I could hear him crack it up. I could hear Dom crack it up.
Oh, that's funny. Oh my God, that's hilarious. Now you've been doing comedy for a long time, and I can't remember. Did you get into acting first, or stand up, or was it kind of simultaneously?
I had an English teacher that got me involved in speech and debate, and she got me a mentor to help me with this one speech that I was doing, oral interpretation of literature, and because there was a lot of voices in it, a lot of characters, and so Perry was kind of like my first comedy mentor. My good friend Lennon, who was like a big brother to me, he and I started doing comedy together. I was in the 11th grade.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. And so Perry was really my first sort of structured mentor of comedy who sort of kind of told me how to write an act, how to set an act up. And then he used to produce some shows at USC called Evening of Soul, and he put me on a couple of those shows. And so that was really the beginning of me being a comic. I had done one play at that point. Mm-hmm. I went to ended up at USC on a debate scholarship, and really I was going to be a lawyer, but auditioned for the acting program and got in and started working professionally the same year. So seriously going after comedy didn't happen until after college, and by then I was already working hard as an actor. Mm-hmm. I started working professionally as an actor the same year I got into the acting, the fine arts acting program at SC, which was my junior year in college. And so that was around 86. I did my first TV show, which was Hill Street Blues. Yeah. And then working professionally in theater, that same year. Or a year before that, actually. But then it wasn't until I would pop out of college and do some open mics to make money, and it wasn't until after college that I really started pursuing comedy. I went up to San Francisco the year that I graduated to do a show with the San Francisco Mime Troupe. They do commedia dell'arte, that style of acting, And it was really, from a comedic acting standpoint, that was one of the best things that could have happened to me, because it just solidified my acting comedy chops. And when I came home after doing that show that summer, all of a sudden I wasn't working. And so I went back up to the Bay Area and got into the San Francisco comedy competition.
Oh, okay.
And made it to semifinals and really didn't have an act. I didn't really have an act and got to semis. And so I thought, well, I could probably do this for a living. So I got back home, and there was a lady doing a TV show on public access called Dare You to Laugh. And so I would go and do that show, a new 5 minutes every week. And
wow.
One day she called me and she says, hey, I'm doing this show in Tacoma, in my hometown, and I want you to be on it. And so she got like a van and drove a bunch of comics up there. And she said to me, she says, oh, Speedy can't come, so I need you to do 30 minutes. And I didn't even know I had 30 minutes. And so that moment, I took out a business card and a pen, and I wrote an outline on the back of the business card while we're in the van. And I'm looking at that business card all the way up to Tacoma. And then the night of the show, I'm looking at the card, which now I can't do a show without writing an outline. So I write an outline before every show. I go up, I do my set, and I did 37 minutes.
Oh, wow. That's great.
And I didn't even know I had 37 minutes. I was like, oh, okay. And so Nikki Johnson was her name. So that was the beginning of me featuring, and the Mooney Twins were hosting the show. So they had me on a couple of shows with them. And before I knew it, I was featuring for a bunch of different old school comics. And things just sort of snowballed. So I always tell people that comedy is my day job. It's like that's the way it's the thing that keeps me going when I'm waiting for that next acting gig.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been good that way.
Yeah, it seems like it. I just couldn't remember because, you've been in so many things. Like, you've been as an actor for so many years. Like, you look at your IMDb credits, and they're just,
Yeah, well, and that's not all of it, because there's things that aren't on IMDb that I did before there was internet.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe those producers are gone. And some of it I don't remember because I don't have my old resumes. I could probably go in and upgrade it if update my my profile if I had those old resumes, but I don't have them. But there's a lot of stuff that I did that's not on IMDb.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I believe that, absolutely. I just know I knew you more as an actor than a comedian until I moved to San Diego, and then that's, where we met, and I seen you doing shows and stuff there, and that's when I was like, oh, wow, he does stand-up too, but, but I can see.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, don't know that I'm a comic, and
mm-hmm.
and then they see me and they go, oh, he's a comic. Like you were talking about Clobber earlier. Clobber came to one of my shows one night, and he had an idea for a show for me. For a one-man show, and we started talking about it, and he's like, well, you're one of the few comics that you're both good at comedy and at acting. He says a lot of actors try comedy and they're not good at it, and a lot of comics try acting and they're not good at it. He said, but you're good at both. I have this idea for a show. Let's start writing this one-man show. So we've been doing that, and kind of working on. I think we have 2 more characters that we had to flesh out, and then. I've been working on, revisiting my tap dance years and trying to get my chops back up because I want to open and close the show with a little bit of tap. So I'll do everything that I can do as a performer in this show. I'll sing. I'll do some little bit of tap dance. I'll act. I'll do a bunch of characters. And hopefully it'll be more of a showcase than, just your general show. I think right now, thematically, the way we're working it, it's a fun piece. But I think because of the way issues in our country have erupted. I think we're going to have to revisit one or two of these characters to address some of those issues.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. Well, that'll be fun to see where that comes and see it come to life, though. I mean, because he's right. I definitely see that, where you definitely see, comedians try to be actors and they're not good, and, the vice versa.
Yeah.
And, and I see, comedians try to do like one-person shows and stuff where they try to do the acting, and it's not that great. Like, I did a one-person show, but I didn't do acting in it. It was all pretty much spoken word. I added poetry and then my stand-up, because I'm not a very good actor. Like, I know it. I've done some stuff, and I've done a few like commercials here and there, but I'm a terrible actor.
Hilarious.
I've been trying to take some classes. I was going to take some acting classes, and then the pandemic happened, and so that kind of put a lot of that stuff down, because I had just did some improv classes and was getting all excited for this acting class that was supposed to be coming up, and then and everything happened. So
yeah. The pandemic, wrecked a lot of plans.
Yes, it did. Well, I mean, hopefully things are starting to look a little better. I mean, obviously, just because it's a new year, we can't just expect everything is going to be great, because there's still things from last year that are going to trickle over. But it's definitely, I feel like it's looking better. Like, and I think we're going to get there.
Well, I don't know. I think I heard that there was a new strain of the virus, that's shown up in Africa. It's a third strain.
Jesus.
So,
I guess I hadn't heard this. Well, thanks for ruining my hope. Jeez.
Hey, wash your hands, man. Wash your hands.
I wash my hands. I wear my mask. I have sanitizer in my pockets when I go out.
Don't let little kids grope you, because
they're
really not washing their hands.
Yeah, I do a good job of staying away from kids. That's kind of my philosophy. It's probably for the better too. If people see me with kids, they probably start to panic. So, all right. Well, we're gonna start wrapping up. I got a few things that I like to end with. Just a couple things that I like to talk about. The bumming and bombing, the dreadful feeling when a joke or that doesn't go good. Yeah, that feeling. How long does that typically last, and how has that changed for you over the years?
I tell people this often. People always have fears of being a comic because of the idea of bombing. And I say to them, hey, with comedy, I'd rather be a comic than a professional singer, because as a comic, you tell a bad joke, boom, you're right into another one. You have an opportunity to redeem yourself. You got 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes of bad song.
Mm-hmm. Good. That's very true.
Yeah. So for me, I let it go in the moment, because I don't want to carry it through the rest of my set. It's like if a joke doesn't go well, boom, I'm right into another one. I might sweat a little bit in that moment, but you don't notice because I'm sweating anyway.
Hiding in plain sight.
I can feel my temperature go up a little bit when a joke is not quite working the way I like it to work. But just boom, right into another one. It's like let it go and move on. It's like when I go to audition for a TV show or a film, I do it and let it go. So I don't carry it with me.
Yeah, that's good. That's one thing. I've done a few auditions here and there, and I don't know, like, those are where I really feel like I bomb. Like, you get done with an audition and I'm just like, whew, that was tough. But then I think a lot of that in my case is that I haven't really auditioned for a lot of things, and I haven't really, because I don't take acting as serious,
Yeah.
For me. So, but that's, something that you definitely have to let go. Because when you hold on to that stuff, it just makes the next one even worse, because you put more pressure on yourself.
My very first audition was for Hill Street Blues. I go to the audition, and I see all these name actors that Huggy Bear was in there reading for the same part I was reading for, and I was like, wow, that's Huggy Bear, and that's so and so, and that, and for me, I was like, well, if they want him, they don't want me, and it totally relaxed me. I go in, get the job. It's on my answer machine before I get home. So for the next year, after every audition, I'd rush home and check my machine. and then it hit me. I was like, oh, I'm not going to get them all. And I was able to just let it go. And that's the way I approach it. I go in, it's like I do my audition and I let it go. The only thing you can control is what you do in the room. It's like you might not get a job for. It has nothing to do with your acting ability. You wore a purple shirt today, and one of the producer's wife left him last night. She had on a purple dress. You're guilty by association. So there's things that you can't control. So control what you can control, and live your life. It's like there's no need to carry that stuff with you. So I prepare myself to the best of my ability going in, do it and let it go. And with comedy, it's the same thing. I do the best I can do when I'm on stage. And try to have fun. I think a lot of comics forget to have fun. I'm up there to have fun, and because if it's not fun, then why do it? It's too painful to drag yourself around the country not having fun.
That's very true.
Fun when I'm doing it, and if you're hanging on to that last joke that bombed in the middle of your set, the rest of your set is not fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a very good point. Very good point. And you kind of already touched on the next question, but I'll see if you have anything to add. What goes through your mind when a joke doesn't work when you're on stage?
Well, the first thing is like, this ain't going the way I pictured it. and then the sweat starts, and then it's how do I get out of this and into something else? It's like boom, lay that one down, lay it to rest, and get it to the next thing.
Yeah, that's kind of what I thought with after you answered that last question. And then do you listen back to your sets still? Like, how do you?
I used to. After every set, I would record it and on a recorder and listen to it, but I don't do that anymore. Now what I do is because I have a pretty good sense of what's working and what's not. Mm-hmm. And then I get off stage, and usually it's got me amped up until late at night. And so I'm thinking about the set and what went well, what didn't work, how can I make it better? And so I don't have to listen to it anymore. I do watch tapes of myself if I haven't been on stage in a while. Like I have a show tonight, and I haven't been on stage in a while, so I'll look at probably my dry bar before I go and do the show.
Mm-hmm. No, and that's a good tactic too. I did that, or at least I listened to audio when I was getting ready for the dry bar too, because I was like, I haven't been on stage for a while. What jokes do I? Yeah. What can I remember? That you get to be my age, man. It's like what can I remember is the big thing. I'll look at old outlines because I keep them I write a new outline in a book. I look at old outlines, and sometimes I look at it and go, how does that go? I don't even remember how the bit goes. Wait a minute, how does that? What? Yeah, sometimes it's like, thank goodness for audio and old tapes. Yeah. That's for sure. I always worry about that because when it comes to comedy writing, like joke writing, I'm not a write it down person. Like I work everything out in my head, and I might jot a note here and there so I can keep working on an idea or I don't forget the idea or whatever, but I don't really write word for word like I used to when I started. So now my biggest fear is getting amnesia.
Yeah. Some jokes that I have to say them word for word to make them work right. Mm-hmm. Some of them, most of my act, I'm the same way. It's like I'll write the gist of it. This is the joke. And then I get on stage and play with it until it works. Mm-hmm. And so now I look at my act. There's a couple of bits that I have to say them the way they were written to hit the beats in the right spots.
Yeah, which that makes sense. I mean, because there's definitely jokes where the words are important. Word economy. It's the same thing as having the right amount of words, but also the right words. Because there's different versions of a word. Different words can mean the same thing, but in the contents of a joke, it might not imply the same thing.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. All right, well, now we're going to do some fun stuff before we get out of here. I know we talk about a lot of the dark things of comedy with bombing and everything, but I have some fun questions I like to do. One of them is a new thing I've created is a Art of Bombing Get Pumped playlist. Is there a song that gets you pumped and ready to perform or gives you energy? No, not really? No?
Mm-mm.
All right. I'll take it. And then
what's funny is because like I remember at the Madhouse they would always ask you, hey, what do you want me to play before you go up? And it was a different song. I have them play a different song every time I went up. I haven't really found the MCL theme music for my act yet. So because I guess I don't depend on it. I think I'm so into before my set into looking at my outline and seeing can I remember these jokes then. What the music is, and I'll watch like the last couple of minutes of the act before me, so I can either ride the wave, put myself in a mental space of, they're killing it, so I'm going to ride the wave, or they just bombed. The audience can't wait to see me.
Yeah, that's.
And so I'm always in that mental space of I'm going to do well no matter what. So the music has nothing to do with it.
Mm-hmm. No, that makes sense. It's good to be focused like that. And then what's been one of your favorite gigs that you've done so far?
Well, I think, clearly, I mean, it's like I really enjoy doing churches. So, church gigs are fun. But I did a winery that they actually have church service at this winery.
That's
some
interesting.
Christians own the winery, and just from the moment they contacted me to the moment they put me back on the plane, they were so gracious and treated me so well that was probably my best gig ever.
Oh, nice! Yeah. It's amazing how. It doesn't matter how the show goes necessarily, but it's how it goes back to full circle what we were talking about at the beginning, being treated good by the people that booked you.
Yeah. I mean, just so they had car service to and from the airport from my house. Car service once I got on the other side. Put me in a really nice hotel. Fed me. It was really just really, really gracious, and I was very grateful and thankful that group of people, kind of got it. It's like we were having a conversation after the show, and they were saying, it must be really hard being on the road, because I was getting ready to go to Canada right after that gig, and I was like, yeah, I said sometimes it's tough because you don't know what you're going to get when you get there. And, but they were so gracious that it was just, fantastic. And on top of that, they stay in touch.
That's great.
Text me or send me an email and say, we're thinking about you, we're praying for you, blah, 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 blah. But, who does that?
Yeah, that's amazing. That's great.
Yeah.
That definitely shows you that they care, and it shows you the big difference between the kind of people, that they are versus who usually books comedy.
Yeah. The guy back in Kentucky who paid me out loud in the middle of the bar.
Oh, jeez.
Instead of bring me to the office, pay me. This is the best $5,500 I've ever spent.
Oh my God!
I was like, you're trying to get somebody killed, but it's not gonna be me.
I love it. Oh Oh, that's great. All right, well, the last question, I like to play a game called Pick a Number. You pick a number between 1 and 20, and I ask a corresponding question that may or may not be comedy related.
Okay. 6.
6. All right. Favorite one-liner joke, if you have one.
When you say one-liner, set-up punch?
Yeah, it's typically what a one-liner is, but I mean, I'll take a favorite joke. It doesn't have to be specific to that.
I think it's Rodney Dangerfield. I get no respect. My wife says she wanted to do it in the back seat. She wanted me to drive.
Nice. Can never go wrong with some Rodney Dangerfield.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
I spent an epic night hanging out with Rodney Dangerfield in Vegas. After he won his suit against Caesar Palace.
Wow, that's amazing. I bet you that's an amazing story.
Yeah, that was a fun story.
Oh, that's great. All right, well, guess we'll finish up with where people go ahead and plug your social media, where people can find you.
Probably the best way to find all my social media is go to markchristopherlawrence.com and scroll down, and you'll see all of my links to the various social media outlets that I'm on.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me, Mark.
Thanks for having me, Dan. It's good to see you.
The Art of Bombing is a Blitzed Entertainment production. Hosted and produced by me, Dan Bublitz Jr. The stand-up spotlight bumper was produced by Joe Nicola Music. The Art of Bombing theme music was written and performed by John Holt. All other music was used under Creative Commons licensing. All stand-up audio clips were used with permission from the comedians. You can help the podcast by subscribing, leaving a 5-star rating, and a review. For previous episodes, merch, blogs, and more, please visit theartofbombingpod.com. And remember, stay safe so you can live to love.